C'est le sort du Kosovo. Mais c'est surtout le sort.
The Americans were more skeptical. They had come to Rambouillet with an alternative outcome in mind.
If the Serbs would not agree and the Albanians would agree, then there was a very clear cause for using force.
She was saying, you sign, the Serbs don't sign, we bump.
I don't think that they thought this through sufficiently.
Well, this all goes back to Milosevic refusing to sign the peace deal. Do the Serbian leadership have a legitimate gripe when they say the Rambouillet peace deal that's being forced on Yugoslavia is unfair?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you've seen this 81-page document that they were forced to take it or leave it, to take or leave, you would see that it creates a state within a state. And the fact that this package was presented with no chance of modification, and plus the fact that the second part of the package was NATO troops in Serbia, I think it was impossible for him to accept.
Dr. Robert Miller in Canberra, thanks for your time tonight.
Well, it was the West's decision to go to war, not Yugoslavia's. And when I say the West's decision, there is a great deal of evidence to suggest that Rambouillet was organized to provide an excuse to go to war. And I say that quite clearly and deliberately.
That they are a very uncompromising set of people. They're a very brutal set of people. They have a long history of enduring occupation. First of all, Ottoman Empire, then the Austro-Hungarian Empire, then the Nazis in the last war. They don't give up easily. The next step should be a big deployment of NATO troops along the border between Kosovo, Macedonia and Albania. Then the NATO troops would do a train and equip program for the KLA in the same way that the Americans did for the Croatian army.
But Greece has rejected British and American suggestions that it could be drawn into a war with Turkey if the Kosovo crisis continues, and has made it clear that despite its membership of NATO, it is uncomfortable with the airstrikes.
If the bombing continues and there is no solution, then the different opinions will get more and more strong.
And support for Serbia from 10,000 Greeks marching through Athens, backing their government's opposition to NATO.
Angry pro-Serbian demonstrators riot outside the American embassy in Macedonia.
Anti-NATO rage was also breaking out across the rest of Europe. In Berlin, thousands of demonstrators turned out, some in fierce clashes with police. Across Italy too, more protests today. Along with Milan and Rome, Aviano Air Base, where NATO has some of its air power. Thousands of marchers demanded an end to air attack.
Io credo che quindi si stia aprendo piano piano lo scenario che deve ricondurre ad una iniziativa politica.
Similar demonstrations were happening from Prague to The Hague. In New York, Kosovo-Albanian protesters came face to face with pro-Serb demonstrators. One side painting Bill Clinton as the archetypal 20th century villain, others pointing the finger at Serbia's president. It's hard to see either side in the real conflict in Europe showing any more hope of finding common ground.
5,000 Australians, mostly holding dual citizenship, are refusing to leave the Yugoslav war zone. You must worry, no matter what the accuracy of the bombing and the determination not to damage and maim civilian areas, there's always the possibility that that will occur.
By acting now, we are upholding our values, protecting our interests, and advancing the cause of peace.
Certainly we are targeting the forces of Yugoslavia, the military forces, so I'd like to make that clear. We are not and we will not attack any civilian target, and no matter how long this campaign has to continue, we will continue to take every conceivable measure to avoid any so-called collateral damage.
For the first daylight raids of the campaign, Serb TV showing pictures of destruction, babies' clothes in the debris.
All-out war came to Belgrade 11 days after bombing started.
The USS Nicholson spent Easter delivering a score of Tomahawks at night. The noise, heat and light as the missiles blast upwards above the Adriatic have become so routine that the off-duty crew don't even notice it, rarely inquiring at breakfast time about the night's aggressive attack. It's as if warfare is just another task to be undertaken among the many.
The city of Novi Sad was among today's targets. 4 missiles caused massive explosions at an oil refinery this morning. Industrial sites in the Serbian city of Pančevo and the Kosovo capital Pristina were also hit.
Bombing oil plants was politically risky. Some of the Allies believed they could not carry public opinion with them much longer.
His daughter was dead, and so were 2 young neighbors. That bomb hit Serbia's state television station. One man's news is another man's lying propaganda. Whatever your job, if NATO decided you were on Milosevic's side, you were a legitimate target.
On April 23rd, a missile blasted into the television station, shearing off the back wall closest to the nerve center of RTS, the master control room. When we arrived shortly afterwards, they were digging frantically to save a technician buried in the rubble. They failed.
16 Yugoslavs were killed, journalists, technicians and a makeup lady. NATO was unrepentant.
You want to crush the enemy with overwhelming force, quite frankly, extraordinary violence. The speed of it, the lethality of it, the weight of it has to make an incredible impression on the adversary.
Mass protests against NATO have become regular events in the capital Skopje. Ethnic Serbs make up only 10% of the population, but the government's decision to allow NATO troops to be stationed here has angered ethnic Macedonians too. Oliver Aristide is convinced his country would defend Serbia if NATO ground forces attacked. The real villain is President Clinton. Victoria's parents are now in the Serbian city of Niš.
It was the cluster bomb which opened in mid-air and sprayed the ground with explosives. A week earlier, 14 people had been killed in the Serb town of Niš when American cluster bombs aimed at an airfield landed in the streets. Fearing a technical fault rather than pilot error was to blame, the Americans stopped using the weapons until the final week of the war. But the RAF used a different type of cluster bomb and continued to carry them. One of the targets on that great night was supposed to be the logistics headquarters for the Yugoslav army. It wasn't that at all. Something had gone hopelessly wrong, and it was all on TV.
Those people with water started.
Bombs from a B-2 had killed 3 Chinese journalists. The strike seemed so extraordinary that conspiracy theorists insisted it must have been deliberate.
The credible threat of force as a tool of diplomacy collapsed amidst this depravity. Its bluff was called. The war, which started as a moral crusade, was perhaps not about morality at all, nor even about Kosovo. It was about saving NATO from collapse.
You think it's over? Do you think it's over? You answer that one.